To be filling in for John this morning. We have lots of great issues to address today and lots of great guests. And our guest for this half hour is Vice Admiral Ted Carter. He is the superintendent of the United States Naval Academy, one of the, I think, finest institutions on the face of the earth. They do a fantastic job in preparing our midshipmen for the challenges that they face. And I know it's an extraordinarily competitive process as we have the opportunity to interview a lot of fantastic candidates to go to the Naval Academy. In fact, I was just recently there with Desron 60, the destroyer squadron that's based out of Rota, Spain, and I had the opportunity there to meet several midshipmen that were there for the summertime, part of the great summertime programs that the Naval Academy have, and the things that they're able to learn and traveling around the world and making sure that they are ready to go once they finish the Naval Academy and head on to the U.S. fleet. So great efforts that are going on there. So Admiral Carter, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to reflect with us on the great things that are going on there at the Naval Academy.
Congressman Wittman, good morning. It's great to be with you and a chance to speak to the Commonwealth of Virginia people this morning.
Well, listen, I really appreciate that. We have a lot of, I think, interested families here in the region. Obviously, there's a big Navy presence in Virginia and great interest in what's happening at the Naval Academy. One of the things I wanted to start off with is, we see all the great efforts that occur there at the Naval Academy in educating and preparing those young midshipmen to go to the fleet and become the naval officers of tomorrow. Give us a perspective on what are some of the newer issues and challenges that the Naval Academy is facing in making sure that they provide those educational opportunities there for our midshipmen and assuring that they get the full scope of what's necessary for them to be successful once they go to the fleet.
Well, Congressman, as you know, the Naval Academy's been around a long time. We were founded on October 10th, 1845, when the Secretary of the Navy, George Bancroft, worked with then the Secretary of War to give us 10 acres of land from the United States Army at Old Fort Severn. Over those 172 years, one of the challenges that still remains is just taking care of the installation and the infrastructure. The Naval Academy, as people would know it today if you came and visited us, is still a fairly small campus. We're 338 acres of mostly land that's been reclaimed from the Severn River. And the buildings that we enjoy, where we house the 4,400 midshipmen, where we do all of our academics and a lot of our sports fields, were mostly built and put together at the turn of the century. A lot of folks may not know the Civil War, happening from 1861 to 1864, 1865, centered right around the Naval Academy. The Union Army actually took place at the Naval Academy and set up their principal hospital. So the Naval Academy land was pretty much decimated during that time. It took about 30 years for everyone to come together. Ernst was an architect that helped design the Naval Academy. And so the buildings that people see today were all designed in the late 1800s and built somewhere between 1903 and about 1925. So when you have buildings that are well over 100 years old, there's some care and feeding and maintenance to make those things relevant. So, for example, Bancroft Hall, where all 4,400 midshipmen live, it's still the biggest dormitory in the world. It's 8 wings. It comprises about 33 acres of territory between 5 stories. To keep that building relevant and modern, for example, just to have 4G LTE cell phone connection and to have Wi-Fi takes a Herculean effort. We have that now. We've been able to do that. We have air conditioning in that building, which we've had really only for about 20 years. So to just even get to those basic things that you would expect at a grade A institution like the Naval Academy takes some special attention. So one of my concerns is, since we are federally funded through the United States Navy, is just to have the dollars to keep the campus, or the yard as we call it here, modern and relevant to keep us competitive. Now, one would argue, with all the great press and all the wonderful things that happen in the Naval Academy, Forbes magazine just recently came out and listed the Naval Academy as the #1 public college or university in the country. So even in the face of these fiscal challenges, we continue to do great things. Sometimes it may even actually work a little bit against us because, as you know, I'm always trying to make sure we've got the resources to do everything from not only take care of the infrastructure, but make sure we have the money to pay for our world-class faculty.
Yes.
Half of the Naval Academy's faculty is civilian. It's a different model than, the U.S. Army's West Point or the Air Force Academy out in Colorado Springs, where they're 70 to 80% military instructors. That part of our formula has been there since the day we were founded. But in all things, there's still, high price and high cost to get the right people. So as good as we are, we still have some challenges, some constraints. Interestingly, the principal academic buildings of the Naval Academy for math and science and engineering and our library, those were all built from about 1965 to 1975. So those are the newer structures, and even those buildings now are aging to the point where they need some care and feeding. So, this is a challenge as a National Historic Landmark where we have, well over 2 million visitors come on our campus every year just to see the Naval Academy. We have a responsibility for the American public to not just make sure that the installation is viable for our midshipmen, but also for the American public to see it.
Well, I agree. It is certainly a national treasure. I know anybody that's gone there to visit really leaves there with a sense of what is great about that institution, and seeing the midshipmen as they walk across campus and the beauty of the campus there is really awe-inspiring. And I appreciate what you've done through some pretty adverse times, and we have to look right to Congress and what's happened over the last 3 years with the sequester. And I know the challenges that you face with budgets that don't provide you the opportunities to do the things I think that are necessary for our midshipmen. We pointed out earlier about seeing some of our midshipmen en route to Spain. The ability for our midshipmen to be able to travel around for these international exchange programs are extraordinarily important. And the Naval Academy Foundation, which is the privately funded foundation, has made up some of the lack of dollars there. But that shouldn't be, I think, an expectation of the foundation. It really is, I think, what's important for our nation and the opportunity that our midshipmen have to gain that experience, as well as you pointed out, the challenges of not only maintaining the buildings there, but also building new buildings. I wanted to get your perspective, too, on some of the new curriculum that you're putting in place to better prepare our fleet, and more specifically, the cybersecurity program there. As you know, our midshipmen there are going to be the cyber warriors, as well as being able to do all the other duties that they would face in the fleet, and getting that element of their education is key. And I know that you've been at the forefront of making sure that not only is the curriculum going in that direction, but you point out the physical facilities there that have to be put in place in order for that to happen. Can you give us an update on what's happening with that curriculum, and then the efforts there also to make sure that we have the classroom space, and more specifically, a secure environment for the midshipmen to actually work in the realm that they would face in the fleet, and dealing with the secure networks and secure systems to learn the lessons necessary for them to be effective when they get to the fleet?
Absolutely. This is a challenging but also an exciting time for our academic curriculum at the Naval Academy. First, on kind of a larger scale, we, in conjunction with our United States Navy and Marine Corps, have self-imposed on ourselves to make sure that the great majority of the midshipmen that graduate leave here with technical backgrounds. Every midshipman graduates with a Bachelor of Science degree, whether they're an English or history major or a mechanical engineering major, but 65 to 70% of our graduates leave with an academic major in science, technology, engineering, and math. And although we have moved the curriculum significantly over the last 10 years in areas like aerospace engineering, where we now have a rotary wing wind tunnel, and we've added that, and working on drone technology with project-based learning programs for our midshipmen. We've developed a nuclear engineering major, which, although we have produced many great nuclear engineers over the years, thanks to our graduate Hyman G. Rickover from 1922, we have also opened up new areas of study. So going all the way back to 2010, we instituted mandatory courseware and cyber operations, cyber science, and cybersecurity. We're still the only institution in the country that has a mandatory course for freshmen in the cyber sciences that start even with the basics of cyber hygiene and then go into the technology of how the Internet technologies work and how the Internet works. And then we replaced one of our electrical engineering mandatory core courses, which for generations we used to have 2 electrical engineering mandatory courses. We replaced the second one with an additional very technical cyber course. So every midshipman, takes 2 cyber courses over their 4 years. And then starting in 2011, we brought in our cyber operations major. So this is also a very unique major throughout the country because it isn't just cybersecurity. It's a multidisciplinary approach to cyber operations. It covers computer technology, computer engineering, electrical engineering, systems engineering, and of course cyber, offense, defense, even the political science aspects of understanding what the rules of law are within the cyber domain. It has quickly become one of the most popular majors on the Naval Academy campus. We have roughly about 100 midshipmen a year that want to delve into great detail in this major. There are many clubs now and teams that function within the cybersecurity domain. For about the last 15 years now, we've competed in a cyber defense exercise sponsored by the National Security Agency. And just during my time, we were able to create a war room for this team to build on unique networks so they could understand how best to not only defend a network, but how they would infiltrate a network themselves. It has bore great fruit. 2 out of the last 3 years, our Naval Academy team has won that significant exercise, and that's across not only our service components, our sister naval, our sister military academies, our friends to the north in Canada. It's a significant exercise, and those teams have been recognized by the White House. Those teams have had a chance to go visit the White House and see either the president or the vice president and thank them for their unique ways of figuring out how to defend a network. Now, of course, all of this course of study is very important, and we continue to move on. We've even been one of the first programs in the country to get a full accreditation through an organization called ABET. This is an organization that accredits all the technological academic courseware for every college and university in the country, from MIT to Stanford to Caltech. They have given us an accreditation for the computing sciences part of our cyber major, and now they are using us as a model for the overall cyber operations and sciences accreditation coming forward in the next 2 years. And then finally, as we've built academic buildings here and looked at how best to go forward with our academic programs, thanks to our members of Congress, we received $120 million in 2015 to design and start building a cyber operations academic building. So we've already broke ground on it this past year in October. So we're coming up on a year of design and initial build. It's going to be named after Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, the very famous computing science flag officer, one of the longest-serving flag officers in the Navy. It'll be the first academic building named after a woman on any of the service academies. And we are in the process right now of driving huge piles into the ground to build this amazing 200,000 square feet structure that'll be nestled in between our engineering building and our library. And in conjunction with that, we're building a parking garage, which is very much needed here at the Naval Academy. So all those things are happening, even amidst some of the challenges fiscally. And that building will be done in 2019. It will be the cyber field of dreams. It will be a smart building. It will be where we can teach at a classified level. It'll be a place where even some of the experts from all over Washington, D.C. can come and have a great conversation and symposia over how we're going to go forward and do the important work for cybersecurity for our nation.
Well, I know you all have put a tremendous amount of effort into properly designing that building, as you said, to make sure it meets all the needs there, not only now but into the future for our midshipmen as they are becoming very well versed in cybersecurity. And that's a daily part of what they deal with today. We focus a lot on on some of the other elements of the naval sciences, but certainly operating within the cyber world today, as you said, is part of every facet of their function as a Navy officer today. So it's obvious that the curriculum and the physical facilities are going to be there for them as they are facing that educational challenge there at the Academy. Wanted to also get your perspective. Here in the Hampton Roads area, well, for that matter, across Virginia, there are a lot of prospective Academy attendees. We have a strong military presence here in Virginia. It continues to grow, and also strong veterans presence here in Virginia. So people that know the military, lots of folks that have Navy, Marine Corps connections. So we get a lot of questions, and I wanted to pose it to you. The question to our office comes in, and that is, what piece of advice would you have for any young man or woman that wants to attend the Naval Academy? Of course, obviously we know that there's an appointment by their member of Congress, but if you were to give advice to somebody that's interested in the Naval Academy, say from a young person in middle school to somebody that in high school is thinking about this, what would be your perspective on what they would need to have in mind to be competitive to become a midshipman?
It's pretty simple in terms of especially very young people that are thinking about whether this would be a good fit for them. The first thing I would advise is get some good information, understand what the Naval Academy is, how it does have now a developmental program for moral, mental, and physical programs to prepare young men and women to be commissioned officers in the Navy and the Marine Corps. So, just getting the basic understanding of what the Academy is. Of course, coming to visit the campus at some point is always a great way to start. But in terms of what an individual should do to prepare themselves to be competitive, I would say there's really kind of three things that that young people can be thinking about. First of all, get at any top-end college or university, you're going to have some academic strength. So doing well in high school, A's and B's in high school is almost a must. Trying to get some college courses under your belt while you're in high school also makes yourself a little more competitive. I would say that certainly having the physical stamina to do the work as a midshipman. This is a challenge with our youth as we go forward. We're finding fewer in terms of overall percentages meet the body composition standards to come be in service, whether it be enlisted in the Navy or come to the Naval Academy as a midshipman. And then the third thing is what type of clubs and activities do you want to get yourself involved in? When we look at who gets into the Naval Academy, it isn't just the smartest or the best athletes. We can find very smart people and we can find great athletes, but we're looking for the whole person. So, for example, we still have a very high percentage of those that come to the Naval Academy that are Eagle Scouts or are in the Girl Scouts and perform at the highest levels. We have a lot of people that come from musical programs. About, believe it or not, 1 in 4 of our incoming freshmen have performed at the highest levels of musical programs as a youth. A sense of volunteering, sometimes even just the types of employment that people do, all can tell and paint the picture of what a whole person is. Right. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that don't necessarily have proven leadership qualities, but those that have the potential to be good leaders going into the future. Virginia is clearly one of the biggest areas from which we recruit. I can just speak for myself. I grew up in Rhode Island, but in my 36 years of being in the Navy, nearly half of my time in the Navy has been spent in areas like Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and in Suffolk. I have been throughout much of the state of Virginia and met a lot of wonderful people that are interested in the Naval Academy, and there are a lot of Naval Academy graduates that live in that area as well. So we'll continue to draw from Virginia, and as you point out, it is one of the most competitive states to get an appointment from the Naval Academy because of our proximity and because there are so many influencers of the Naval Academy in your state.
It is that. Well, Admiral Carter, listen, we have just a few seconds left. Wanted to get your perspective. I have a lot of Naval Academy alumni here. Tell us about the 2017 football season in 15 seconds.
Well, we're always competitive. This will be our third year in the American Athletic Conference, and I would be just optimistic that we'll be good. We're athletic. We'll probably be one of the biggest teams that we've ever fielded in the over 125-year history of Navy football. And so it'll be exciting to watch. Most of our games are on television this year, so whether you are able to come to a game or watch it on TV, the fan base of the Naval Academy continues to grow, and I'm optimistic that we'll be competitive in every game, whether we're playing Notre Dame or opening with Florida Atlantic on September 1st. It'll be an exciting year for us, led by Coach Ken Niumatalolo, one of the most prolific football coaches in the country. So we'll be good and we'll be competitive this year.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Admiral Carter, listen, thank you so much again for joining us this morning. Please give everybody back at the Academy my best, from the faculty to all the leadership there, and the plebe class that's there now. I know that they are undergoing their tough training, but I know that they'll succeed. So thanks again for joining us.
Frank, thank you very much, and great day to you, Congressman Wittman.
Thanks so much.